But speaking on the company looking well, speaking on WWE doing well, even for the first time in a while, WWE is something I'm going to mention when we talk about a big week in Japan, not just with Shinsuke Nakamura, who took on the Great Muta at a NOAH New Year's Day special in Japan, but also New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom 17 as well. Wrestle Kingdom went down this past, a couple days ago. We're only a few days into the new year. And I will say for New Japan Wrestle Kingdom 17, one positive I take away from it from the production standpoint is that it was essentially one night this year. Now, I know that for some reason on the 21st of January in Yokohama, they are calling whatever that is night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know.
That's odd.
I'm not Japanese. And I know that when I watch Wrestle Kingdom, I know I pick up on things every year and then I catch myself and go, hey, this isn't like my culture. Maybe it's not produced and presented to me the way that I'm used to, let's say, WWE presenting, but I have to be not respectful, but essentially realize that it's presented a different way for a reason.
You hit on something there because there's a lot of people out there, and I know we're going to get to this part in a second because we're going to transition to WWE, New Japan. I know we just talked Shinsuke Nakamura. We touched on that a little bit, but with the debut of formerly Sasha Banks to Mercedes Moné, there's a lot of the optics were different because of how they present things versus the American style of wrestling, the wrestling television business, I guess, or the audience in general. It didn't get a huge pop, so people are making a big deal about it. But normally, the Japanese fans, they're more locked into the product, and they don't have the microphones like they do. They don't have this. They don't have the crowd mics like WWE has.
To answer anybody if they weren't aware, and I was aware of this, it's very, and again, this goes with Japan, is that they were actually not, I want to say prohibited, but encouraged not to cheer during the show. Japan is a place that has taken things like COVID and any sort of illnesses and airborne, issues very seriously over many years. And with this being essentially the first Wrestle Kingdom back to full strength of fans, they were very much, I don't know if you saw, but I mean, and you've seen this at previous Wrestle Kingdoms before COVID, a lot of people wearing masks, and a lot of them were encouraged not to cheer or chant, but to clap when they like something. So the reason hearing cheering and clapping or cheering and, any sort of vocality is because they're prohibited from it. And again, I don't know what the restrictions, I don't know if they're going to be asked to leave the arena. I think that was something on the back of tickets that was said that you could be asked to leave the arena if, you get too close to a wrestler or you do one of these things.
I do know from a production perspective, they don't do the same type of crowd miking that WWE and AEW do.
I know a lot of things are different.
Yeah.
So again, like speaking from the production standpoint where I led this off is last year they did like 3 nights of Wrestle Kingdom where it was 2 nights at the Tokyo Dome and then on a night somewhere else. So essentially, even though it was 3, it was 2. Luckily, even though this year's 2, it was essentially 1 because if it's not in the Tokyo Dome, to me, it's not Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know, again, why they're calling these other things Wrestle Kingdom. I don't follow closely enough to know why they would resemble it. If I watch it, will I feel like I'm watching Wrestle Kingdom? Probably not. But I will say, with the way they did it last year, where each night was of the Tokyo Dome, those both felt like Wrestle Kingdom because they were both in the Tokyo Dome. They both had the wrestlers in which we know and the stories in which the matches ahead of time that we were aware of and a similar storyline. You know what I mean? Like if you're not a WWE fan and I told you a random Monday Night Raw in July was night 5 of WrestleMania, you wouldn't understand. So, you understand right night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania both look like WrestleMania. But if I told you, and this random Monday Night Raw in July is WrestleMania night 3, you would get a little confused. So for me as an American fan here, I don't know why those are called Wrestle Kingdoms, but so it felt like one night of Wrestle Kingdom.
Good card too.
And a good card as always. I want to say it was on par with previous Wrestle Kingdoms. I don't think it was above and beyond. The whole production of, again, Wrestle Kingdom and New Japan Wrestling when it's in Japan is just something that is so different when I watch it. Whether it's just the whole thing with like the pre-show, not having like any sort of cutaways. I don't know if you've watched Wrestle Kingdom in the past where you watch them online, but they kind of just have like a still camera on the ring and then they go down to the ring for a pre-match and then they have like another still camera and there's no like WWE where it's like the set open and it's like, it's just kind of
it's
like
just different.
It's just like you're watching like a live feed where there's, just a big security camera just overlooking the whole place without really having that this is the beginning kind of feeling. They do have a video package, but it doesn't kind of feel like WWE.
I will say this, with limited working knowledge of the storylines that were built into a lot of these matches, I didn't get to see the whole show. I was able to catch different clips online because you can always find stuff online through different sites and social media. From what I was able to see, it was a quality show. I mean, there was some really good moments there.
Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay for over half an hour. Okada and White for half an hour as well. Good matches.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this as we talk about, formerly known as Sasha Banks, when they were talking heading into the match with Kari, formerly Kari Sane of WWE and NXT, that, women's matches aren't traditionally featured on Wrestle Kingdom. And it was like the first singles match at Tokyo Dome in decades. So that was kind of new to me, and it was not a long match. I'll give it up to New Japan. Luckily, they didn't make it that long because, Wrestle Kingdom, they like to make everything, 40 minutes long. But it was just felt like a regular American style women's match. So we'll talk quickly about Sasha Banks and, Mercedes Moné making her debut. One, I'll ask you, how long do you see her being in New Japan? Do you see this just being a few shows and out?
Yeah, it's definitely a few shows and out. I think this is, and according to different reports that have come out, it's WWE's expectation is she's going to get this whole thing out of her system and come back to WWE. That's kind of like their approach to it. And it sounds like she's not going to AEW, even though there are reports out there that she's going to show up next week on Dynamite. The reports that I have been hearing is that Sasha doesn't want to be locked in long term, because if she was going to go to AEW full time, it would be in a 3-year kind of contract, and she doesn't want to lock herself up long term like that, because I think the plan for her is to eventually go back to WWE. So it sounds like New Japan is working with her on kind of like a certain amount of appearances or matches, and then her tour of duty in Japan will be done, and then I would fully expect her to be back. And on
February 18th is the time where she's going to make her next appearance, going against Kari for the IWGP Women's Championship in San Jose, California, which is probably pretty beneficial for her, that she gets to, work with New Japan without really having to go back and forth to Japan. Not saying she'll never go back there again, but, her first appearance is in Tokyo in a huge show, and the next time she's got to show up for an arena show is in the United States. So that obviously is very beneficial for her, and probably beneficial, I wonder, I guess, what kind of drawing power she will have in San Jose, because it's going to be, this is an American audience. New Japan is going to be pretty much on the back of her to sell tickets for this show, and we'll see exactly what kind of drawing power this whole time. Because, as I mentioned in our year-end review, Sasha Banks was one of the females of the year just because, like she said during her promo at Wrestle Kingdom, she's the talk of the town.
I will say this, and I'm not bagging off what I said on our last show of the year. The whole situation with Sasha, it's kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth. I respect everything that has done for the business and what she's doing now. She's doing her own thing. I can't knock her for that. I couldn't put her on my list, because my list for last year entails you actually doing stuff that's in the ring, so to speak, or on the microphone, in a wrestling company. So, like, yes, you're the talk of the world in the wrestling business because of what you've been doing outside of the wrestling business. So for me, and I give her credit for that, by the way, but when we did that list, it was people that were actually women that were actually in these matches, busting their ass every single week or a good portion of the year, for example. Sasha Banks does have drawing power. There's no question about that. She has the drawing power. I don't think it went off as great as it could have been from, I saw her debut, with the whole entrance, her theme video, music, the whole situation. It wasn't very long. Let's be honest. But she botched her finishing maneuver on her debut. That's supposed to be this big thing. I know that's kind of going into things a little more detailed, but you want things to kind of go off without too much of a hitch. And the one thing you don't want to mess up is your finishing maneuver. not a good look. And then that's the thing. A lot of people have been critical of Sasha Banks over the years with her botches. I've seen botch Banks or Banks botch. You know, they've come up with these hashtags that have trended before on social media. So it didn't surprise me that there was a botch there. I think she's a talented wrestler, but with some of the things that she does, every once in a while, there's going to be a botch. It's just that's how things go. She's a performer. Not everything is going to go off perfectly. I thought the entrance was good. I thought the video package was good. I thought the presentation outside of the botch finishing maneuver was done right, but the whole package just didn't work. But I think New Japan's still happy because they're getting more eyeballs on their promotion because of her. I just think she's going to, I think WWE is spot on with this, and the reports are that she's going to do a few matches, and get back to WWE.
I think what would have been huge at Wrestle Kingdom is if Triple H showed up. And the reason I say that is because one thing I noticed about this Wrestle Kingdom in previous years is we had a conglomeration of a lot of other companies getting involved, right? And so when Carl Anderson came out to defend his championship, next to his name, it said Bullet Club. But when Kenny Omega came out, or FTR came out, next to their names, it had the AEW logo. So they were kind of showing that partnership with New Japan, and something we've kind of always felt in a way. Yeah. AEW was a little more open to working with other companies. They're kind of more, like what Impact was, where it's a little more fluid, where the Kenny Omegas of the world are allowed to show up on Impact, and, Impact guys show up on AEW, that kind of thing. And for WWE to really kind of make themselves have great publicity would have been for Triple H to go to Wrestle Kingdom. If Triple H went to Wrestle Kingdom, I can guarantee you they would have not turned down the spot for him to jump on commentary for a match or for a minute. And for him to just come out there and talk about how he's supporting, Carl Anderson, or not even just his people, but say, I'm here to watch this great wrestling, to really, show respect to some of these other people. Let's say, we all know Bayley was backstage, Sasha Banks, you could talk, positive about her. And what that does is if you go to New Japan and you talk positive about Sasha Banks, and you talk positive about all the other people in which you're watching, and you kind of give the stamp of approval to New Japan on what a great product this is and what a great event this is. One, it tells all you WWE guys in the back, hey, I really like Triple H, if they don't already, because if I go to New Japan, he's going to support me. Similar to what we saw with The Undertaker, or, Vince McMahon showing up to watch, Brock Lesnar in the UFC ring. It means a lot that this guy, even though I left his company, is going to come here and support me in my other endeavors. It means a lot to me that if I become a movie star, that Vince McMahon and Triple H and these people are going to come and they're going to be the first to watch me at the movies and cheer me on, that kind of thing. So if he went to New Japan and supported Sasha Banks, even though she doesn't work with the company anymore, it would show Sasha, obviously, that she's welcome back in WWE, but show that, there's no hatred, there's no animosity. But most importantly, for other than just a goodwill ambassador, it would make it, because as we've learned before, anytime that, these companies kind of have somebody like we saw with Shinsuke Nakamura showing up, or Mickie James last year at the Royal Rumble, it opens that forbidden door. It makes people go, are they working together? If Triple H is showing up to Wrestle Kingdom, what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to have some of these Wrestle Kingdom guys come to WWE? And now he doesn't have to pay Kenny Omega anything. He doesn't have to pay Okada anything. It's just going to be good publicity, because people are going to say, is Kenny Omega or Okada or Jay White, are they talking with Triple H? Is Okada going to show up at the Rumble? Just showing up at someone else's show as a representative of WWE is going to make the whole world all of a sudden talk WWE about the show. Now this is WWE presents Wrestle Kingdom. Now this is all of a sudden WWE is going to be what we leave Wrestle Kingdom talking about. If Kenny Omega is in the crowd at Elimination Chamber, we're all of us going to leave that show thinking AEW and WWE, AEW and WWE. And, even though he just shows up and he's watching the show, he's not doing anything. But all of a sudden, we're going to have all these thoughts of, is FTR coming back to WWE? Is Tony Khan going to show up in a WWE? All these things that we now think are quote unquote possible because this guy, Triple H, is at the ring at WrestleMania or Wrestle Kingdom, and he's just watching it from the crowd.
I'm just going to leave you with this. And this has AEW, New Japan, WWE. You could put it all in one bucket here. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you caught that. Young Bucks. I don't know if you've heard the news. Contract talks are not going well in AEW, and their contract is done at the end of the year, which I know we just entered 2023. But not only will there be a bidding war of 2024 for MJF, but there is a possibility that the Young Bucks could have a bidding war on their hands as well. And who knows? What would the landscape be in WWE or in the wrestling business as a whole if not only MJF jumped ship, but the Young Bucks jumped ship? How interesting would it be?
But again, just to stir that pot, and I understand you don't want to show up at an AEW show because that is like your direct competition. That's not considered like a neutral party. You know what I mean? For example, Carl Anderson, right, under WWE contract, isn't going to show up at an AEW show, similar to how he showed up to New Japan. Shinsuke showed up at this NOAH show, similar to how he's not going to show up on, AEW All Out. Okay. So this is kind of a neutral show. So it is a way for you to go to this neutral show, this UN show, if you will, where AEW stars are there and WWE stars are there. But instead of letting AEW get all the, the press, because next to their names of all the wrestlers, it's got the AEW logo. And a lot of people think, New Japan and AEW, they're both open to talking with each other and working with each other and having New Japan people, as we just saw with that pay-per-view they had in 2022 where New Japan and AEW had that, Worlds Collide pay-per-view or, Collision Course or whatever they called it. Yeah. Right. So by just Triple H showing up, he can show, hey, don't forget about us. And more importantly, because of how big WWE is, not just would they not forget about him, but all of a sudden WWE would be the talk of that pay-per-view. And I hear a lot of people talking now because of the Shinsuke thing that people like the Great Muta could be in the Royal Rumble. Because of Shinsuke working with him. And, so...
Here's the thing. That speculation could certainly lead to actual facts because if WWE was giving Shinsuke permission to go work there, there had to be some give and take where, okay, if Shin's going over there to work a show, we're going to need this person to come work the show.
So with Carl Anderson working in New Japan, right, you could have got something, I guess, selfishly out of it by going there as well, making sure that when Carl Anderson came out, they labeled him as WWE wrestler, made sure that you were seen in the crowd so that while Carl Anderson was working, people were thinking, what is because when they see Triple H, they're going to think WWE. What is WWE doing here? Why is WWE at Wrestle Kingdom? What was there other WWE people at Wrestle Kingdom? Is WWE talking with New Japan? Is there going to be a New Japan WWE show? Like all these things that are just free press, especially with the Royal Rumble coming up, the pay-per-view full of surprises. There's never a better time to just show up, and look like, you're in talks with this company and it costs you nothing. It costs you just, essentially a plane ticket over to Japan to watch this show and to get everybody a buzz that WWE. Oh, I thought Tony Khan and New Japan worked together, but maybe with Triple H and WWE.
And here's the thing.
They work together.
Maybe the grand plan was because Triple H did not go there, like you were proposing. Maybe what the grand plan is this. Carl Anderson does his thing under the WWE umbrella with Japan. Still does business with Japan. Shinsuke Nakamura does some business in Japan. This could all be setting up without having Triple H's presence, which in theory, this would have been good. Uh-huh. What I'm thinking happens here is the trade-off is you're going to see some surprise names that are New Japan contracted wrestlers at the Rumble. Do not be surprised. I'm not going to be surprised. I might be surprised who it could be, but don't be surprised if there's one or even two New Japan contracted wrestlers in this year's Royal Rumble. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's why the Royal Rumble is one of the favorite wrestling shows of the year because of things like this. The speculation that is brewing. We're coming up in just a few weeks to my favorite match of the year and one of my favorite shows of the year.
Indeed. Wrestle Kingdom overall was a good show. I think it was on par with every other Wrestle Kingdom. It's crazy to think because, watching Wrestle Kingdom, and again, I understand things don't change too much, but it really, when it comes to the production value of Wrestle Kingdom, it is like identical to it for Japan and all these, Eastern countries that technologically are so far advanced versus United States. I just feel like it's weird that the presentation, again, maybe this is just cultural to me, but the presentation of Wrestle Kingdom 14 and the presentation of Wrestle Kingdom 17 are like exactly the same. There is no now we've added different replays. We've added different features. It's like the ring looks the same. The stage looks the same. The entrances are great. Don't get me wrong. But it's like nothing about it seems like they've progressed
No, because
and I know it probably doesn't matter to them, but it just literally looks like I'm just watching. You can't tell the difference in years, other than the age of the wrestler.
I think you already hit it on the head. I think you answered your own question. I think the Japanese culture is based on tradition, and they want to keep things as traditional as possible, which is why I think that's why they're doing how they're presenting it the way they are, because they're traditionalists in that aspect where it's worked for them all these years. Why change it? It's one of those. It's the old saying: if it ain't broke, you don't fix it.